While Heat confronted Murishim, the rest of Universe 6 and Universe 10 clashed across the arena. The Saiyan trio faced 3 of Universe 10's warriors. Despite taking a support role, Kava stepped up as the leader of the trio. He was the only one with real battlefield experience, something even Caulifla begrudgingly acknowledged. Caulifla took point, charging headlong into the enemy formation and keeping constant pressure on their opponents. Kale, however, found herself in a more complicated position. She was the strongest of the 3, yet unleashing her full power demanded restraint. Using it recklessly could put everyone at risk, ally and enemy alike. As Caulifla engaged Murisan and Napapa head-on, Kava darted in and out of the fight, landing precise strikes when openings appeared. Meanwhile, Kale noticed that their third opponent, Makeup, had yet to make a move, so instead of leading the assault, Kale hung back watching carefully. Suddenly, Makeup acted. His arms expanded, stretching outward in an attempt to trap both Caulifla and Kava at once. Kale reacted instantly. In a blur of motion, she appeared behind Makeup and struck him with crushing force, disrupting his attack. The blow sent him tumbling across the arena. "That's not fair, attacking me from behind," Makeup protested, scrambling back to his feet. Kale flinched at the genuine hurt in his voice. Under different circumstances, she might have apologized, but this was a battlefield. She can't afford being gentle. Then she pressed the attack. Makeup tried to defend himself, but Kale's skill and raw power quickly overwhelmed him. Before he could take further damage, he activated his unique ability. His body shifted into a strange composition, becoming extremely elastic and flexible, as though his flesh had lost its solidity. Kale continued her assault, but now Makeup bent and twisted unnaturally to evade her blows. Even when her strikes connected, they dealt minimal damage to his slippery, fluid form. If physical attacks would not work, then Ki would. With a sharp cry, Kale fired a powerful Ki wave at point-blank range. The blast struck Makeup directly, slamming him into the ground and leaving him momentarily motionless. "I'm sorry for this," Kale whispered, raising her hand to finish the fight. Makeup suddenly laughed through his pain. His body erupted in a violent burst of black ink, spraying across Kale's face and body, blinding her. She tried to wipe it away, but the substance clung into her skin with unnatural stickiness, resisting every attempt to remove it. Before she could react, Makeup acted again. His body stretched impossibly thin, becoming almost liquid. In an unpleasant display, he surged forward and forced himself into Kale's mouth like a rushing tide. Still blinded and disoriented, Kale could not react in time. A sickening sensation coursed through her. It felt as if her body no longer belonged to her, as though something foreign had invaded every cell. Her thoughts blurred, panic rising as she struggled to understand what was happening. Then she heard Makeup's voice, echoing directly inside her mind. There was no sound, yet it thundered within her consciousness. "At first glance, your body doesn't look like much," Makeup said calmly. "But your cells are overflowing with vital energy. I will take what I need to recover from the wounds you gave me. I hope you don't mind." Kale couldn't answer. The violation of her body and mind shattered her focus. Anger and helplessness tangled together inside her chest. The rage she had spent a year trying to restrain began to rise. That primal, uncontrollable fury she feared most stirred within her, trying to break free. Her strength started to drain as Mikio fed on her life energy. While merged with a living being, he was linked to their mind as well, able to feel their emotions and even glimpse their thoughts. As he drank in Kale's power, he felt it. Her rage was not merely emotional, it was physical. Each of her cells began to quake with violent energy, surging and swelling, rejecting his presence. The power rising within her was monstrous, primordial, and utterly overwhelming. The fury spilled into Makeup's own mind. For the first time in his life, he felt panic when possessing someone. This wasn't the simple rage of a warrior. It was the awakening of something primal and catastrophic. Instinct took over. Makeup tore himself free from Kale's body and recoiled, staring at her in horror. He had devoured countless powerful beings before, even berserk warriors, but this was different. Something within this Saiyan should never be disturbed. Kale staggered, gasping as the invasive presence vanished. She forced herself to breathe, to calm the storm raging inside her before it consumed her. For a moment, she stood still, trembling as she fought to regain control. Then, as if releasing the pressure building within her, Kale raised her hand and fired a massive ki blast toward Makeup. He barely escaped in time, flattening himself and merging into the arena floor as the beam tore past where he had stood. Kale sensed Makeup's ki signature vanish. Her attack had hit nothing, which meant he had either retreated or was setting up an ambush. Either way, she decided not to linger and moved to rejoin Caulifla and Kava. During Kale and Makeup's brief clash, Caulifla and Kava had continued fighting Napapa and Murisam. The two Universe 10 warriors showed formidable close combat skill. Napapa fought in a sumo-like style, specializing in grapples and powerful shoves, using his immense physical defense to bulldoze through enemy attacks. Murisam, on the other hand, mastered an 8-limbs fighting style, using fists, elbows, knees, and shins in relentless combinations to overwhelm his opponents. At first, Napapa and Murisam managed to pressure the Saiyans, but Caulifla and Kava adapted quickly. Instead of relying only on close combat, where they were at a slight disadvantage, they coordinated their movements and mixed in mid to long range ki attacks, constantly disrupting the flow of their enemies. The shift in tactics worked. Murisam and Napapa were forced onto the defensive, and both Universe 10 warriors powered up. In response, Caulifla and Kava transformed into Super Saiyans. Before the second round could fully begin, Makeup re-emerged from the floor and rejoined his teammates. "That Saiyan girl I fought is dangerous," Makeup warned. "I don't think we can handle her alone. We need to do that." "Murisam, take those two for now," Napapa said, stepping toward Kale. "I will hold her off while you do your thing." "Looks like she really scared him," Caulifla muttered, glancing at Kale. "That's my sis." Kava nodded. "We should regroup with Kale before they split us up." They moved to rejoin her, but Murisam made his move first. Makeup merged with Murisam's body and mind, and together they launched at Caulifla and Kava, cutting them off. Caulifla blocked Murisam's opening strikes, but was quickly overwhelmed by the sudden surge in speed and power. Kava fired a ki blast from Murisam's blind spot, but the attack was reflected back without Murisam even turning his head. Kava deflected the blast just in time, only to be met by Murisam's knee slamming into his stomach, followed by a flurry of jabs to his face. Kava recovered enough to block, but Murisam followed with a brutal roundhouse kick to his ribs, sending him skidding back. Caulifla closed the distance and engaged Murisam in close combat. Their exchange was fierce, and for a moment she managed to hold her own against his overwhelming martial skill. As Kaba caught his breath, he noticed something strange. Murisam's ki signature had changed. It felt like two energies occupying the same body at once. The fusion of Murisam and Makeup explained the sudden leap in power. Kaba gathered ki in his palms, waiting for the right opening. Caulifla continued pressing Murisam, but his speed and power kept climbing. He eventually forced her back. At that moment, Kaba fired his charge ki wave from behind. Once again, the blast stopped in mid-air. Two arms burst from Murisam's back and caught the attack. They were Makeup's limbs, shielding his host just as before. With a casual motion, Makeup redirected the blast harmlessly into the sky. The Saiyans exchanged a quick look. Now they understood what they were facing. Two warriors sharing one body. Both Caulifla and Kaba powered up to Super Saiyan 2 and re-engage. They attack in tight coordination, striking from multiple angles. Murisam kept pace, while Makeup supported him by blocking and reflecting any attack Murisam could not defend on his own. The Saiyans could not land decisive blows, but neither were they being overwhelmed. "I'm just warming up," Murisam said telepathically to Makeup. "Get ready, I'm about to raise my fighting spirit even higher." God Ki flared around his body. "You two better be hiding more power," Murisam taunted aloud, a confident grin on his face. "Otherwise, this ends soon." "I was about to say the same," Caulifla shot back, her frustration turning into excitement. Kaba spoke quickly. "He's strong, but if we take him down, we eliminate two fighters at once. Let's go all out." "You don't have to tell me," Caulifla replied. Her rage sharpened into divine ki surging through her as she transformed into Super Saiyan rage. Beside her, Kaba steadied his breathing, letting calm and discipline guide his godly ki as he entered Super Saiyan God. Side by side, the two Saiyans charged. Murisam met them head-on. Caulifla unleashed a furious barrage of blows, but Murisam blocked and evaded each strike. When he pushed her back, Kaba stepped in, only for Makeup's extra limbs to emerge and intercept the attack. The Saiyans pressed from multiple angles, forcing Murisam into a defensive posture. Even with Makeup's added limbs and eyes, he was still confined to one body against two coordinated fighters. Makeup shifted tactics, firing ki beams from fingers and eyes that emerged across Murisam's body, trying to drive Kaba back. Kaba stood his ground, dispersing the incoming blasts, while Caulifla traded blows with Murisam. Their exchange remained mostly even, both sides gradually increasing their power, but Murisam's strength was rising faster, his godly ki flaring more intensely with every passing second. As Kaba deflected Makeup's counter-attacks, he made his move. He thrust both palms forward and unleashed a massive surge of divine energy at Murisam. The wave wrapped around Murisam's body like glowing restraints, binding him in place and, by extension, trapping Makeup within him as well. Their movements froze almost completely. "Now, Caulifla!" Kaba shouted. She didn't hesitate. Caulifla channeled a lot of power into the opening. Ki flared around her fist as she drove a devastating punch straight into Murisam's stomach, launching him high into the air. In the same motion, she flied upward, passing him and hammered him back down with a crushing kick. Murisam strained against the divine bind. He tried to break free, but Kaba held the technique with sheer focus, forcing his ki to keep them immobilized. Muri-san slammed into the arena floor with explosive force. Caulifla gave him no time to recover. She gathered ki into her palms and fired a powerful blast while he was still down. The attack struck cleanly, engulfing Muri-san in a surge of energy. Both Saiyans regrouped, breathing heavily after burning through so much power. Kaba raised his hands and activated one of the techniques he had learned from the Supreme Kai of Universe 6. He began absorbing Genki energy from the surroundings, then redirected the gathered energy between himself and Caulifla, slowly restoring their ki. But they were not the only ones who could recover. While merged with a host, Makeup could either drain nutrients to heal himself or sacrifice his own vital energy to restore the body he inhabits. He chose the latter, channeling his energy into Muri-san, mending his injuries and replenishing his ki at the cost of his own strength. With a roar, Muri-san erupted in power and charged the Saiyans. Caulifla and Kaba fired ki blasts to keep him at bay. Muri-san skidded to a halt and shifted tactics. Instead of forcing his way through the barrage, he extended his arms and unleashed his long-range technique, the Fist Barrage. With every punch he threw, a compressed ki blast shot forward. The sheer volume of attacks, combined with his superior raw power, began to overwhelm the Saiyans. Then abruptly, Muri-san's assault was interrupted by a sudden impact from another direction. At the same time the Saiyans were fighting Muri-san and Makeup, Napapa dropped directly in front of Kale, blocking her way before she could rejoin the others. He flared with godly ki and lunged at her. Kale met him head-on, locking hands with him to hold him back. For a moment, Napapa's brute strength drove her down toward the floor. Kale, wanting to regroup with Caulifla and Kaba, let go more of her power. Napapa felt it instantly. A vast surge of energy poured from her body, and the balance of their struggle shifted. Their clash of strength became even. Napapa dug in and switched to full sumo techniques, planting his weight and driving forward with his entire mass. The pressure forced Kale back again. "For a little girl, you are strong," Napapa said with effort. Kale didn't answer. Her real struggle wasn't against him. It was against the rage boiling inside her. Slowly, she released more power, not in a violent burst, but in a controlled, steady rise. Napapa began to lose ground. He could feel her strength climbing by the second, and a flicker of unease crossed his mind. When Kale finally overpowered him, she crushed his hands in her grip and broke free. Napapa recoiled, grimacing from the pain. Kale took a brief moment to steady herself. Seizing the opening, Napapa caught his hands in dense ki, reinforcing his strikes. He rushed in with a rapid barrage of open palm blows. Kale slipped past the attacks and answered with a single heavy counterpunch charged with ki. Napapa staggered, recovered his footing, and then enveloped his entire body in ki. With a roar, he hurled his full mass forward like a living battering ram. Kale braced with one arm, slowing his charge just long enough to gather ki in her other hand. Then she fired at point-blank range, blasting Napapa away in a violent explosion. He was thrown across and slammed into the ground. "She's too strong," Napapa thought as he pushed himself back to his feet. "My pride might suffer for this, but the best I can do now is buy time for Muri-san." Napapa was resilient, but she knew a single decisive strike could end this. Even so, she hesitated. Then she hardened her resolve. She would not hold back and endanger the team. As Kale gathered her ki for a finishing blow, Napapa began his own preparation. He lifted each leg in turn and stomped into the arena floor with tremendous force. His skin darkened to a deep purple and his ki energy became heavy and dark. The space around him warped, and the near indestructible arena beneath his feet cracked under the pressure of his presence alone. Napapa had activated his ultimate technique, compressing the density of his body and ki to extreme levels. Kale fired her ki wave straight at him, but the dense aura around Napapa deflected the attack like a shield. In this state, even the smallest movement demanded enormous effort from him. He could not afford to rush her, so then she would be forced to come to him. Napapa released the full effect of his power into the area around him. The space itself bent inward. Air, debris, fragments of the arena, and even Kale were dragged toward his position. Napapa had become like a living black hole, a gravitational force so intense it could swallow the universe with ease without any restraining. Kale fought the pull, flying hard in the opposite direction. She couldn't escape the zone of attraction, but she managed to keep her distance from the epicenter that was Napapa. Realizing Kale was strong enough to resist being pulled in, the sumo warrior exploited the moment she spent fighting the gravitational pull. With tremendous effort, Napapa launched himself toward her. Kale couldn't turn in time, and Napapa wrapped his arms around her from behind, locking her into a brutal full Nelson. Napapa concentrated the field of compressed power around just the two of them, intending to crush Kale under the overwhelming density of his technique. Her body was strong enough to endure the pressure, but even so, she couldn't easily break free from his grip. The struggle didn't last long. Forced to draw deeper on her power, Kale transformed into Super Saiyan. Ki erupted from her body in a violent surge. With raw colossal strength, she burst forward at high speed, dragging Napapa along with her despite the crushing density of his body. Napapa tried to maintain his hold, but Kale's strength overwhelmed his arms. She tore free of his grip, but instead of letting him go, she seized his arm mid-flight and hurled him away with incredible force. Napapa was helpless against the sheer momentum of being thrown. His immense density prevented him from being flown out of the arena, but that was never Kale's intention. She had aimed him directly at Murisam, who was standing his ground while firing key attacks at Kava and Caulifla. Napapa became a living projectile, hurtling straight toward his own teammate. At that speed and with that density, the impact would have been devastating, especially if Murisam was caught off guard. In the split second before collision, acting on pure instinct, Napapa deactivated his special state. His body's density dropped back to normal, sacrificing his own defense to lessen the impact on Murisam. Makeup spotted Napapa hurtling toward them and warned Murisam in time. Murisam braced himself and managed to block the collision, reducing the damage, but even so, the impact sent shockwaves through both of them. Napapa wasn't as fortunate. The crash dealt him far more damage than he would have taken if he had remained in his dense state. Still, he had achieved his goal. He was back with his team, and more importantly, he had bought Murisam the time he needed to power up further. Kale landed beside Kava and Caulifla, still in her Super Saiyan form. "Are you okay, Kale?" Kava asked. He wasn't just worried about potential injuries. He was worried about her state of mind. "I'm okay. I can keep it under control." Kale said calmly. Of course you can, Caulifla said with a confident grin. You're the strongest one here. Now, the three of us can finish them off. No, Kale replied, her tone firm in a way that was unusual for her. I will fight him. You two make sure no one else gets in the way, she said, her eyes fixed on Murisam. What? You're going to take him on alone? Are you forgetting this is a team fight? Caulifla protested. It's not like you to talk about teamwork, sis, Kale said with a small smile. This isn't the time to fight alone, Caulifla shot back. Kava, who had been listening, understood what Kale wasn't saying out loud. During the training for the tournament, Kale had once lost control and gone berserk, badly injuring both him and Caulifla before she came back to her senses. In these circumstances, the last thing she wanted was to risk that happening again. I understand, Kava said. We'll make sure no one interferes. Caulifla clenched her fists. It wasn't the time for arguments. Worse than that, she knew what was going through Kale's mind. That only made her more frustrated with herself for not being strong enough to fight side by side with her chosen sister. Fine, Caulifla said. Beat him fast, Kale. Then we will take the rest of them together. Yes, sis, Kale answered, her voice steady. On the other side, the Universe 10 fighters regroup as well. Makeup slipped out of Murisam's body and merged into Napapa instead, focusing on healing and reinforcing him for the fight ahead. With that burden lifted, Murisam stepped forward with renewed confidence, ready to face Kale one-on-one. As Napapa Makeup focused on recovery, Caulifla and Kava moved to intercept them. Kale advanced alone toward Murisam, the 8 limbs fighter, while her teammates held the others back.